to help us reinforce the important messaging around the state's burn ban. I'm Casey Tingle, the director here at the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, and I'm joined today by a number of our state partners: Felicia Cooper from the State Fire Marshal's Office, Ebony Brasher from the Department of Ag and Forestry, Todd Donmeyer from Department of Transportation and Development, Colonel Lamar Davis from Louisiana State Police, and Colonel Greg St. Romain from the Louisiana National Guard. The Governor asked us to hold this news conference this afternoon for one simple reason: to stress the importance of the ongoing burn ban and to encourage the public's compliance with that ban. We desperately need everyone's help in adhering to this order. We know a lot about teamwork here in the state of Louisiana, and as it relates to the ongoing drought and wildfire threat that we face, this truly is a chance for all of us to pull together as a team. We've seen a number of wildfires in recent weeks, historic numbers, due to the dry and hot summer conditions setting records across parts of our state. As we speak today, about 10,000 to 12,000 acres have burned in Beauregard Parish, in an area between Singer and Maryville, which has forced evacuations and required a large-scale response from both state and local first responders and firefighting teams. Some of the flames overnight were in the range of 300 feet tall as the teams battled this blaze. Similarly, other fires have been reported across all parts of our state. Even as late as this afternoon, we've been getting reports of additional fires and firefighting efforts. These fires, simply put, present a threat to the public, to our families, to our homes, our businesses, and our property. But there's also an imminent threat to those that are fighting these fires on our behalf and the crews of firefighters that are out there fighting valiantly in very hot and difficult conditions. When you factor in these near-record temperatures across the state, these conditions only become more of a concern for our firefighters. And there doesn't appear to be any guaranteed relief in sight when you look at the forecast, which means that these conditions may remain in place or possibly worsen over the next several days. So here at GOSEP, this morning at 7 o'clock, we activated our State Emergency Operations Center to process any requests for state support from our local emergency managers across the state and to best coordinate the state's response to both the Beauregard situation as well as other fires and ongoing efforts related to the heat and the weather. These requests may include other personnel, firefighting equipment, or any other resources that are necessary, to include bottled water and a range of other resources. GOSEP and all of the agencies that we work with are responsible for this response and have personnel here to help with those efforts and to help get us all through this unique situation and to provide the support that particularly our local firefighting teams and our state firefighting teams need as they work day after day, very long hours in very difficult conditions, fighting these fires. I'm now going to turn it over to Felicia Cooper, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Louisiana State Fire Marshal, and then I'll be back at the end for questions that you all may have. Felicia?
Thank you. Good afternoon. On behalf of State Fire Marshal Dan Wallace, I want to urge everyone in Louisiana to understand this situation is dangerous for every single one of us. Homes have been lost, tens of thousands of acres of property have been destroyed, lives have been threatened, especially the lives of firefighters. That's why every one of us has a role to play right now to protect our families, our communities, and our first responders. We are asking everyone to cooperate with the statewide burn ban. This includes not burning anything at all. We're asking you to be mindful of activities you may consider not to be a fire risk. Please throw away cigarettes in fire-safe containers and be mindful of the conditions around you when smoking. Be sure any towing or safety chains are properly stored before getting on the road, and avoid driving vehicles and equipment on dry grass and fields. We need to keep all of these practices in mind every day that we experience these dangerously dry conditions. But we also need your help to spread the word about the burn ban and all of these prevention measures. Tell everyone you know, everywhere you go, your relatives, your neighbors, your friends, your fellow church members and coworkers. We want to thank everyone who has done all of this so far, especially businesses, schools, churches, and government buildings that have shared the burn ban message on your digital or marquee signs. We ask for even more of you with these types of signs to consider putting that message out with us as well. Most of all, we want to thank every firefighter that has continued to answer calls to protect their communities from these devastating fires. It's hot, it's hard, it's scary, but it's so very much appreciated. Please, please, help us help each other. Follow this burn ban and help us make sure everyone knows about the burn ban.
On behalf of Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry Mike Strain, we are going to ask that you, the citizens of Louisiana, adhere to this current burn ban. For most of you, it's something that shows up. You think it may or may not apply to you. It applies to every one of us. And we ask that it apply to you in the fact that you realize even outdoor cooking at this point in time could be a hazard. Anything with a fire pit could be a hazard. And we ask that you refrain from doing so until we're past this stage of this particular emergency. At the same time, if you would like to be proactive in protecting your home, business, church, a neighbor's facility, or any other structure, make sure that there's no debris on your roof, anything like pine needles or leaves that could also catch fire immediately, any type of mulch that would be next to your home that could ignite from a particular spark if the fire is near. These sparks can travel well over a mile. Even though you're thinking that you're not close, it could be a real immediate danger. Anything that draws air into your home, any type of fan situation, those could also be a danger to your home. And if you've already stored your wood for this winter and it's next to your home, please remove it immediately because all those are fire dangers. Again, we ask that you help to protect the men and women that are on the line and that are doing this work to protect you, the citizens of Louisiana.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Todd Donmeyer with DOTD. As our state continues to endure these extreme temperatures and dry conditions, DOTD would like to emphasize the importance of the statewide burn ban. Unfortunately, our state has already had to deal with several effects from these wildfires this year. Previously, we've had to close Interstate 10 at the Mississippi state line due to grass fire. Also, wildfires near the Bayou Sauvage refuge area near New Orleans caused visibility issues along the interstate. And just this morning, we issued a closure on LA 110 from Singer to Maryville in Beauregard Parish because of a wildfire. As motorists, we don't typically think of our driving habits as something that could contribute to a fire. So we continue to discourage people from discarding cigarette butts out of their vehicle windows. With these dry conditions, cigarette could easily ignite a fire in dry, grassy areas. And although that fire may not be within the limits of the roadway, the resulting smoke from that fire could cause reduced or zero visibility. Safety chains on trailers can also cause sparks that could lead to roadside fires. So we encourage drivers to inspect all safety chains and ensure that they are properly secured. If you need to pull over for any reason, try not to pull into any grassy areas, as hot exhaust pipes could also potentially start a fire. We ask that you ensure that your vehicles are properly maintained. Brakes that are worn too thin could cause metal-on-metal contact, also creating sparks. It's also a good idea to keep a fire extinguisher in all of your vehicles and be familiar with how to operate it. We appreciate everyone's help and hard work to continue to protect our state, our loved ones, and our state's natural resources from the effects of these wildfires. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Colonel Lamar Davis, Deputy Secretary of Public Safety Services and Superintendent of Louisiana State Police. As you've heard from our state partners, please heed the burn ban and evacuations if you're in the affected areas. Wildfires are not just caused by burning debris in your yard. A single cigarette butt can spark a flame that can lead to mass devastation. Please use caution when traveling through the affected areas, as smoke could hinder your driving visibility. Avoid being distracted and always drive in a safe manner as well as a safe distance, as environmental conditions can change rapidly. Slow down and look for emergency responders working alongside the roadway, as well as other motorists. We want everybody to remain safe, but we must work together in order to accomplish this. If roads are closed, do not go around the barricades. They're there for your safety and the safety of our communities. There have been heat advisories in effect for Louisiana for weeks now. The extreme dry conditions have been a driving force for these fires. But we also encourage you to stay hydrated, care for one another, and pay attention to the weather reports. Please follow all state government announcements through your local news and social media. The Louisiana State Police will continue to update our road closures along with DOTD due to the wildfires on our social media sites as well as with our media outlets. Lastly, if you witness any hazardous situations on the roads, please call Star LSP or Star 577 and report it immediately. That can be your neighbor, that can be a relative, that can be a family member. So we want you all to be safe, but let's work together to do so. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Colonel Greg St. Romain with the Louisiana National Guard. Louisiana National Guard currently has service members in support of our current operations in Beauregard Parish. We have air crews as well as engineers that are currently working in Beauregard Parish. They've been working today in support of Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry and state fire marshals in the response to the wildfires present in Beauregard Parish. The engineers are currently activated to provide support in the areas that may be in threat to the wildfires. But again, we're in support of our Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry and state fire marshal offices and the current parishes. We do have a parish LNO that is also supporting that area. Again, the Louisiana National Guard remains ready and will continue to support our civil authorities, and we'll continue to partner in the response effort with a strong unity of effort and coordination with our local, state, and federal agencies. Thank you.
I also want to just recognize and thank Secretary Ricks for being here from Department of Children and Family Services, as we've had some ongoing shelter operations over the night in Beauregard, and for the support of her team as well. Before I open it up for questions, I just want to kind of remind everybody, when it comes to this time of year, typically we're talking about hurricanes, tropical storms, rain, flooding, that sort of thing. And our public is very attuned to those messages and always does a great job helping us as a state respond and recover from those events when they happen. But this time this year, obviously we are dealing with a different kind of weather situation that requires everybody to be aware of the burn ban and to do their part to reduce the likelihood that we would have anything that could potentially start a fire. We are stretching our resources very thin in very difficult conditions, and this is a trajectory that we have to change, and that's why we're having this press conference today. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you might have for myself or one of our state team that's here.
Real quick, what is the penalties for someone, I don't know if this is a Colonel Davis question, for someone who's caught burning something right now throughout the state?
Well, the burn bans are initiated locally, so those penalties will range depending upon the location.
How do you guys enforce that, Colonel Davis, though? I mean, you have so many rural areas here in Louisiana. I mean, people are still going to burn regardless, I know, regardless of this plea, you know what I mean? But how do you guys enforce that? Are y'all relying on local sheriff's departments, local police departments, what?
We're relying on cooperation. We're relying on our people really caring about their communities and caring about one another. And I think as whether you travel the roadways or whether or not it's a burn ban, it's going to take that spirit of cooperation in order for us to really work at solving this issue. So that's what we rely on, but also know that, you know, our emergency responders are out there. And as you discover any incidents, any hazards or such, report it so that we can take action.
I know West Baton Rouge Parish is asking people not to use water for their lawns or anything on their property of that such. What should people do if a fire is sparked on their property to preserve water, but also to distinguish the fire as well?
Well, and I think if I remember correctly, West Baton Rouge asks that you do not increase the water usage because they wanted to maintain a certain water pressure. And the first thing you do is you contact the authorities, you contact the fire department, you contact the emergency services. And if you have the capability, then that's the time that we use water to try to extinguish a fire. And use your fire extinguishers. You heard some of the other state partners talk about having fire extinguishers ready and knowing how to operate them. So that's the time that we use those apparatuses as well as the water.
And I guess to do with those cigarette butts, this may be a question for the state fire marshal's office. How are those so quickly able to start a fire? You know, I mean, people just throwing a cigarette on the ground and that can quickly ignite a flame, you're saying?
Yes, sir. We do have record that cigarettes can start fires. We do have fire-safe cigarettes nowadays that we hope would readily extinguish themselves quickly. However, with the dry conditions, we're very concerned that until it extinguishes itself, that it may cause a flame beyond the cigarette.
Hi, Courtney Williams with WDSU in New Orleans. Anybody can answer this question. Tell me, you mentioned a little bit about how, you know, the grass conditions are so dry that certain patches are just catching up in fire. Tell me, how important is it that people pay attention to not only their yard, but their neighbor's yard, because it can happen within seconds?
Yeah, that's certainly the case. As Ms. Cooper was describing, the conditions out there are historically dry. As we have seen the record heat over a long period of days in a row with very little precipitation, and now as we see increasing winds, all of that have led our National Weather Service partners to issue red flag warnings for large parts of the state, which is not something that we see a lot of. And so as you have already heard, oftentimes it just takes a very small incident to start one of those fires, and then once it's started, it's a lot of work and time to put it out. And as we've seen over the past week, oftentimes at the loss of quite a bit of personal property, homes, and that sort of thing. And so there is a part of this that's just simply awareness. We want to bring awareness to this issue. We want to bring awareness to the burn ban. We want to bring awareness to the fact that there is a threat out there that we can't really see, that only takes a spark to be brought to very close reality for all of us. And so I think awareness is something that we really want to drive home through this press conference, through a variety of other messaging techniques, because it does take teamwork so that if someone does see something that has started, if they see smoke, if they see anything like that, even if it's not their property, even if it's not something that they in fact caused, they need to be calling that in and reporting that to their first responders so that we can jump on it very quickly.
Sir,
we've seen in other parts of the country and even in Maui where the electric grid and the water lines have been tied. You need both of them in order to kind of put out the fire. How are we prepared to handle a situation in the event that we do have a mass situation to where we can't necessarily completely cut off the electricity, but we also need the water lines?
Yeah, so, those things are related. I think the focus of this is really telling the public what they need to be ready to do. But as we work together as a team, we work together with all of those partners. We work very closely with our utility partners in situations where it's a tropical storm, and we're working very closely with them in this type of event in case those decisions have to be made. And in fact, those are some of the conversations that have gone on the last couple of days. And so it's a true partnership between all of us, those of us that respond and those of us that coordinate our utilities, but also the public. And that's really the message we want to drive home.
Casey, you've been doing this for a while. I mean, how unprecedented is this for us here in Louisiana? I mean, have you guys ever seen conditions like this? I mean, normally you said hurricane season, but for you guys to be doing this here in Louisiana, we're not used to this, obviously.
Yeah, I don't have the specific statistics, but I've been here since 2009, and this is the worst stretch of fire threat that we have faced as a state that I've been aware of since that time. So I don't know how far back that goes, but I think the point is that it's somewhat unprecedented in recent memory for all of us, which is why we need to continue to message the fact that this is a different threat than what we're used to this time of year, but it can be just as deadly and just as destructive if we don't pay heed to it.
Have there been any reported mass or wildfires in the capital region or surrounding parishes that directly impact our area?
I'm not aware of wildfires impacting the capital area. There have been ongoing firefighting in every part of the state. And so while we may not have the woods and the available land and space to really allow one of these things to grow like we've seen in some of the more rural parts of the state, the threat is there for every part of the state. And so regardless of whether you live in a forest or you live in the prairie or you live here in a very urban area, any kind of spark can create a very dynamic and dangerous situation.
Last question.
There's no, right now we don't have like a set end date for the extreme temperatures. Are we planning to push this burn ban back even further, or is it still in?
It will be in place as long as the threat exists. And so I think the message for the public, the message for all of us is we need to get on board with it now, because the sooner we do a better job of adhering to that, and the sooner we can do a better job of not putting our firefighters in some of the situations that they've been in, the sooner we'll be able to come out of that, and hopefully the weather will cooperate as well. Thank you all very much.